This is a compilation of over 1 hour of why you wouldn't survive any zombie apocalypse movies and shows explained, so sit back, relax, and grab your popcorn. Let's kick things off with why you can't survive Walking Dead walkers. Everyone thinks they'd survive slow-moving zombies because they shamble at walking speed and headshots end them. From the relentless pursuit that wears you down to the psychological breaking points that turn survivors into threats worse than the undead, here's why you can't survive Walking Dead walkers. Starting with the one advantage zombies have that nobody talks about: relentless pursuit. Walkers don't get tired, ever. You do. That's the entire problem right there, wrapped up in two simple facts. In Night of the Living Dead from 1968, the first modern zombie movie that defined everything we know about these creatures, survivors hole up in a farmhouse thinking they can wait it out. The zombies shamble toward the house, slow and clumsy, looking like regular people in everyday clothes except for the pale skin and dead eyes. They claw at the doors and windows with the persistence of someone trying to open a jar lid for 6 hours straight. The survivors fortify, they board up windows, they think they're smart, but here's what happens. The zombies don't leave. They don't get bored and wander off. They just keep coming, hour after hour, until the humans inside start making mistakes from exhaustion and fear. One slip, one moment of letting your guard down because you haven't slept in 2 days, and suddenly they're pouring through a window you didn't reinforce properly. The movie showed audiences that slow doesn't mean harmless. It means inevitable. The film introduced ghouls that looked like your neighbors, dressed in the suits and dresses they died in, now stained and torn. They ate human flesh on screen. A shocking choice for 1960s cinema that made people walk out of theaters. One scene shows a ghoul eating bugs off a tree because it's just compulsively drawn to consuming anything. These aren't strategic hunters. They're biological machines programmed to pursue and devour. The survivors debate. They fight among themselves about the best plan, and while they're busy being human and complicated, the ghouls stay simple and focused. By the end, almost everyone's dead. Not because the zombies outsmarted them, but because humans can't maintain perfect vigilance forever. But here's the thing. If one farmhouse could hold off ghouls for a night despite mistakes, why not find a better fortress? Keep that question in mind, because the answer isn't what you think. Overwhelming numbers. Dawn of the Dead from 1978 took the concept and scaled it up to nightmare proportions. The survivors flee to a shopping mall, this massive complex with supplies and strong walls. Perfect refuge, right? Wrong. The zombies, now showing blue-gray skin tones and more detailed decay makeup, swarm the area. They're attracted to the mall like moths to a flame because that's where they used to shop when they were alive. The movie shows hundreds of them pressing against the glass doors, a sea of undead faces with blank expressions. The survivors manage to clear the interior and lock it down, living like kings surrounded by stores full of everything they need. For a while, it works. They're safe, they have food, they even play around on the abandoned merchandise. Then, other humans show up, a biker gang, and the whole thing falls apart. The gang breaks through the defenses to raid the supplies, and in doing so, they let the zombies flood back in. Suddenly, the mall goes from secure fortress to death trap. The zombies pour through every opening, not running, but walking with arms outstretched, moaning that low grinding sound that echoes through empty corridors. What makes it terrifying isn't any individual zombie, it's watching them fill every space, every hallway, every store, until there's simply no room left to hide. The survivors try to fight their way out, but there are just too many bodies blocking every path. One character gets bitten during the chaos. Another gets torn apart by the horde. The movie features the sweater zombie and other memorable undead characters with distinct looks, each one just another body adding to the mass. The film works as social satire, not in showing zombies mindlessly returning to the consumer temple they worshipped in life, but it also demonstrates the core problem with slow zombies. Fight one and you attract 10 more with the noise. Fight 10 and 100 show up. Pretty soon you're trapped in a building surrounded by thousands, and no amount of supplies helps when you can't leave without getting swarmed. The walls that protected you become your tomb. What happens when you try to study them instead of just hiding? Because some people thought understanding walkers might be the key to survival. They were wrong, but what they discovered makes everything worse. Infection mechanics. Day of the Dead from 1985 moves the action to an underground bunker where military personnel and scientists are trying to figure out how the zombie plague works. The walkers above ground keep shambling around while below, researchers dissect bodies and run experiments. Dr. Logan, nicknamed Frankenstein by the soldiers, attempts to domesticate a zombie named Bub. Bub's special. He shows signs of memory, recognizing a razor and remembering how to salute. The doctor thinks maybe intelligence survives death. that the undead can be trained. It's the closest anyone gets to a breakthrough in the entire franchise. The experiments reveal the harsh truth about infection. Get bitten, and you're done. Within hours, you develop fever, you deteriorate, you die, and then you come back as one of them. Amputation might work if you cut off the bitten limb immediately, but you need proper medical equipment and sterile conditions. In a bunker filled with tension and dwindling resources, those conditions don't exist. One soldier gets bitten and they try to save him, but he turns anyway, attacking his former comrades. The movie shows in graphic detail what happens during transformation. The sweating, the convulsions, the moment when the person you knew disappears and something else takes over their body. But infection isn't just from bites. Everyone's already infected. Die from any cause. Heart attack, accident, old age, and you reanimate unless your brain gets destroyed. That revelation changes everything. It means every human death creates a new threat. Your friend has a heart condition? Future zombie. Someone falls downstairs? Future zombie. Natural death doesn't exist anymore. There's only death that makes more walkers. The bunker survivors turn on each other, soldiers versus scientists, fighting over resources and control while the zombies wait patiently above ground. When the conflicts lead to deaths inside the facility, those bodies get up and create chaos from within. You can fortify against external threats all you want, but you can't fortify against your own mortality. Bub eventually shows emotion, mourning for Dr. Logan and using a pistol to shoot the soldier who killed him. It's a glimmer of retained humanity, but it doesn't change the fundamental problem. The vast majority of walkers are mindless flesh eaters, and the infection guarantees their numbers always grow while human numbers always shrink. So if infection turns everyone into walkers, why not just avoid getting bitten and die of old age somewhere safe? Because there's no such thing as safe when society collapses, and that's where the real horror lives. Societal breakdown. Shaun of the Dead from 2004 plays the apocalypse for comedy, but still captures how fast civilization crumbles. The movie follows Shaun, an average guy dealing with relationship problems, when zombies start appearing in London. At first, people don't even notice. The undead shamble down streets, and everyone assumes they're drunk or on drugs. By the time society realizes what's happening, it's too late. Supply chains break immediately. Stores run out of food within days. Gas stations close. Power grids fail. The movie shows this through Shaun's attempts to save his loved ones, running through a city that's rapidly falling apart. The zombies themselves fill the streets in massive crowds, moaning and reaching for anything living. They're slow enough that Shaun and his friends can temporarily evade them by walking briskly, but there are so many that every route becomes a navigation puzzle. The group holes up in a pub called the Winchester, fortifying it with pool cues and furniture. The pub siege demonstrates another survival problem. Even if you find shelter, you need an exit strategy. They're surrounded, ammunition runs low, and the walkers just keep pressing against the building. The horde includes random zombies that look like everyday British citizens, and the movie even jokes about celebrity cameos in the undead crowds. One zombie is Shaun's former roommate Ed, who becomes a sentient zombie kept in the shed for playing video games. The film shows how human conflicts complicate survival. Shaun argues with his stepfather, his friend David questions every decision, and his girlfriend Liz loses faith in his leadership. While they're bickering about the plan, zombies are climbing through windows. The movie uses humor to highlight a serious point. Humans are their own worst enemies during catastrophes. We form groups, but then fracture over disagreements about who's in charge or which direction to go. Meanwhile, walkers have perfect unity, because they only have one goal. No walker ever stopped mid-chase to argue about tactics. The epilogue reveals society adapting to coexist with zombies. Some get used for menial labor, others appear on game shows, and Shaun keeps Zombie Ed chained in his shed for entertainment. It's a dark comedy ending, but it acknowledges something real. The world doesn't end cleanly. It becomes something stranger and worse, where the living have to navigate around the shambling dead like permanent hazards. But Britain isn't America. A different place. Different outbreak. What happens when the zombie plague hits a culture obsessed with apocalypse preparation? The answer is grimmer than you'd expect. American decline. The Dead Don't Die from 2019 sets its zombie outbreak in a small American town called Centerville. The zombies rise due to polar fracking throwing Earth off its axis, an environmental disaster metaphor wrapped in horror. The undead emerge from graves speaking single words related to their past obsessions. Coffee zombie moans, coffee. Guitar zombie mumbles about his instrument. They retain these tiny fragments of who they were while being completely driven by hunger. The movie presents them as ambling corpses with pale skin and hollow eyes, wandering the streets at night, attacking anyone they encounter. The police force, led by Chief Cliff Robertson, Ajin tries to maintain order as the dead multiply. They shoot zombies in the head, the only method that works, but every night brings more rising from the cemetery. The town's isolation means no outside help is coming. Resources deplete quickly, and panic spreads. The film plays out like watching society give up. Characters deliver deadpan dialogue about their impending doom while zombies tear apart victims in graphic scenes. A child zombie appears, showing that the outbreak doesn't discriminate by age. The horror comes from the characters' resignation. They know they can't win. They know this is how humanity ends, and they just go through the motions anyway. What makes this outbreak particularly hopeless is the environmental cause. You can't fix Earth's axis. You can't reverse polar fracking's effects. The dead will keep rising every single night forever. Some characters try to escape, but there's nowhere to go. The phenomenon is global. The movie ends with most of the cast dead and reanimated, joining the shambling hordes. It's Apocalypse's inevitable conclusion rather than survivable crisis. The walkers here aren't even the main threat. They're symptoms of humanity's larger failure to respect natural systems. But symptoms or not, they still tear people apart with decayed hands and rotten teeth. Every outbreak follows patterns. Rural or urban, American or British, the result stays the same. But what about when walkers encounter specific vulnerable populations? Because the worst scenarios involve those who can't defend themselves. Children at risk. The Little Monsters from 2019 puts zombies in proximity to a kindergarten class on a field trip. The outbreak occurs at a petting zoo farm when infected Americans from a nearby military facility escape and spread into the area. Miss Caroline, the teacher, tries to protect her students, while zombies overrun the farm. The children are too young to understand what's happening, so she pretends it's a game. The undead follow the sound of music, drawn to her ukulele playing, shambling after the group with arms outstretched. The movie highlights the impossibility of protecting vulnerable populations during outbreak scenarios. Children can't run fast. They don't understand danger. They make noise constantly. Keeping a dozen kindergartners quiet and moving while zombies hunt them is an impossible task. Miss Caroline manages temporarily through quick thinking and luck, but it's unsustainable. One child wanders off and nearly gets bitten. Another starts crying and attracts walkers. The zombies themselves aren't described in detail, but function as standard, slow undead. Gray skin, shambling movement, kills through bites and scratches. Military intervention arrives, but it's too late to prevent casualties. The facility breach means the infection is already spreading beyond containment. The farm setting shows how rural areas offer no safety advantage. Fewer zombies, maybe, but also fewer resources and no reinforcements. Miss Caroline's heroism saves most of the kids, but the broader implication is clear. In a real outbreak, schools become death traps. Hospitals full of patients who can't evacuate become hives. Our nursing homes turn into slow-motion massacres. Any location with people who need assistance becomes impossible to defend because walkers are patient and caretakers are human. The infection spreads through scratches, too, not just bites, making every physical contact potentially fatal. One scratch from a walker's fingernail breaking skin and you're infected. You've got hours before fever takes you. Then, you're one of them. In a group with children, the ethical nightmare compounds. Do you abandon an infected child? Do you waste resources trying to save them? Do you mercy kill? The movie doesn't answer these questions because there are no good answers. Which brings us to the real killer in zombie outbreaks. Not the undead, the psychological weight of impossible choices, mental collapse. And the slow approach of walkers creates unique psychological torture. Fast zombies sprint at you and it's over quick. Terror than death. Slow zombies give you time to think about your situation, time to watch them shuffle closer, time to count how many are surrounding your position, time to realize you're going to die slowly, probably by being eaten alive while conscious. That waiting builds dread in ways sudden threats don't. Night of the Living Dead weaponizes this through pacing, showing characters watching through windows as ghouls slowly congregate outside. The characters argue, blame each other, make increasingly desperate plans. The stress fractures the group until they're fighting each other more than coordinating defense. Barbara, the female protagonist, goes catatonic from fear after watching zombies kill her brother. And she sits in shock while chaos unfolds around her, unable to process the horror. Other characters debate whether to hide in the cellar or stay upstairs, a disagreement that turns violent. Ben, the black protagonist, tries to maintain leadership, but faces constant challenges from Harry, another survivor who thinks he knows better. Their conflict culminates in physical fighting while ghouls break through the barricades. Harry's selfishness gets people killed. Ben's mistrust leads to fatal hesitation. Everyone's decision-making deteriorates under sustained stress. The movie ends with Ben surviving the night only to be shot by a rescue posse who mistakes him for a zombie. After everything he endured, after fighting off the undead for hours, a human kills him because of a split-second judgment call. That's the psychological thesis of walker outbreaks. The slow zombies aren't what destroy you. The prolonged stress, the moral dilemmas, the human conflicts, the crushing weight of trying to maintain humanity while surrounded by death, that's what breaks people. The walkers just finish what fear and exhaustion started. Dawn of the Dead explores this through the mall survivor's arc. Initially, they're thrilled with their fortress. They have everything they could want materially. But being surrounded by hundreds of zombies wears on them mentally. They start taking risks, making stupid decisions born from boredom and cabin fever. When the bikers attack, survivors make tactical errors because they're not thinking clearly anymore. Stress accumulates like radiation poisoning, invisible but deadly. You don't notice it degrading your judgment until you've already made the fatal mistake. Day of the Dead takes it further into outright madness. The bunker survivors are at each other's throats constantly. Soldiers threatening scientists. Scientists calling soldiers stupid brutes. The isolation combined with the knowledge that they're probably the last humans alive creates paranoia and aggression. Captain Rhodes becomes increasingly unhinged, threatening to execute people over minor disagreements. The stress of living underground with limited resources and unlimited zombies overhead breaks military discipline completely. When the bunker is breached and zombies flood in, people die as much from panic and friendly fire as from walker attacks. The mental toll explains why every zombie movie shows society collapsing completely within weeks. It's not that humans can't physically defeat slow zombies. We have guns, explosions, and fortifications. It's that we can't psychologically sustain the effort. We break under pressure. We turn on each other. We make fatal errors because our brains aren't designed for constant existential threat. Walkers exploit the weakness of human psychology simply by existing. And if mental stress doesn't kill you, the environment will, because choosing where to hide determines how you die. Location selection. Urban areas become death zones fast. Dawn of the Dead's mall demonstrates why. High population density means more zombies. Cities have millions of people who all turn when they die, creating oceans of undead that flood every street. The survivors navigate the mall's parking lot through thousands of walkers, driving vehicles into the crowd to clear paths. The sheer number makes escape nearly impossible. You can't sneak through a horde that dense. You can't fight that many even with automatic weapons. You'll run out of ammunition before they run out of bodies. The mall itself seems perfect with its supplies and security, but it's a trap. The moment you're surrounded, you can't leave without fighting through the horde. Noise from daily activities attracts more zombies. Breaking glass, gunfire, even loud conversations draw them. The building becomes a beacon broadcasting your location to every walker within hearing distance. The survivors can't use generators without creating noise. They can't drive vehicles without attracting attention. Every survival action that requires sound brings more undead to the perimeter. Rural settings offer different problems. Night of the Living Dead's farmhouse has fewer zombies nearby initially, but it's also isolated from help. No reinforcements are coming. You're on your own with whatever supplies you already have. The farmhouse provides some security through its wooden walls and limited entry points, but rural buildings aren't built to withstand sieges. The ghouls break through eventually because farmhouse construction doesn't include zombie-proof fortification. Rural areas also mean limited supplies nearby. Urban survivors can potentially raid stores and warehouses. Rural survivors have to travel distances between resources, each trip exposing them to walker attacks. The farmhouse group runs out of options quickly because there's nothing around them except fields and more approaching ghouls. Your distance from other survivors means no trading, no intelligence about safe zones, no collaborative defense. The Dead Don't Die shows small-town isolation turning deadly. Centerville has maybe a few thousand people, so fewer zombies than a city, but it also has minimal resources for fighting an outbreak. A couple of cops, no military presence, limited medical supplies. When zombies overrun the town, there's no defense infrastructure. The police station becomes a last-stand location, but it's not designed as a fortress. Windows break easily, doors aren't reinforced. The characters make their stand knowing they're doomed because the building can't hold. Islands seem like the obvious answer. Limited access points, surrounded by water that walkers theoretically can't cross. Survival of the Dead from 2009 explores this with an island community that's feuding over how to handle their undead. Turns out, even islands fail because you still need supplies from the mainland. You still have to deal with infected people already on the island. You still face human conflicts that create internal threats. And depending on the water depth and current, walkers might just walk along the ocean floor until they reach shore. They don't need to breathe. Every location has fatal flaws. Urban areas have too many zombies. Rural areas have too few resources. Islands trap you. Mountains are hard to farm. Bunkers run out of supplies. There's no perfect refuge because walker outbreaks don't allow for perfect solutions. Any place you choose to hide becomes your tomb eventually. But what if you don't hide? What if you try to fight back and reclaim territory? Because some people always think they can win through force. Failed militarization. Day of the Dead shows military response failing catastrophically. The bunker houses soldiers with weapons, ammunition, and training. They should be able to handle zombies. They're trained to kill enemy combatants, and walkers are slower than any human enemy. But the military mindset doesn't work against undead. Soldiers are trained to take and hold strategic positions. But there's no strategic position against zombies because they don't have supply lines to cut or command structures to decapitate. You can't negotiate with them or demoralize them into surrendering. The bunker soldiers waste ammunition shooting zombies that could be avoided. They treat it like a war when it's a survival situation requiring different tactics. Captain Rhodes insists on military hierarchy and authority, while that structure actively prevents flexible problem solving. When Dr. Logan proposes studying zombies to understand them, Rhodes sees it as weakness. When scientists suggest communication might be possible with specimens like Bub, Rhodes wants to just shoot everything that moves. The rigid military thinking can't adapt to a threat that breaks all conventional warfare rules. The soldiers also make the mistake of treating scientists as subordinates rather than essential personnel. They bully the researchers, threaten them, create a hostile environment that prevents collaboration. When you're in an underground bunker as possibly the last humans alive, forming teams and sharing knowledge is survival 101. Instead, the soldiers hoard resources and assert dominance, fragmenting the group's effectiveness. Their military training becomes a liability because they apply irrelevant tactical frameworks to an unprecedented situation. Land of the Dead from 2005 shows what happens when military force builds a walled city. The survivors create Fiddler's Green, a fortified zone protected by rivers and barriers with soldiers patrolling the perimeter. They've reclaimed some territory and established a functioning society for the wealthy, while the poor live in slums outside the fortress. The military ventures out in armored vehicles to raid supplies, fighting through zombie hordes with machine guns and explosives. For a while it works. They maintain their territory and keep the undead at bay. Then the zombies evolve. A walker named Big Daddy shows intelligence, learning to use tools and organizing other zombies. He leads a horde across the river by walking along the bottom and breaches the city's defenses. All the military planning and fortification fails because it assumed walkers would stay mindless. The moment they adapt even slightly, static defenses become obsolete. The armored vehicles get overwhelmed, the walls get bypassed, and Fiddler's Green falls. Military might delays the inevitable, but can't prevent it. The fundamental problem is ammunition and resources. Militaries need supply chains for bullets, fuel, parts, and food. When society collapses, those chains break. The bunker in Day of the Dead runs low on everything. The city in Land of the Dead has to keep raiding for supplies, risking people on every mission. Eventually, you run out of bullets, out of fuel, out of people willing to die for another supply run. Walkers don't run out. They don't need supplies. Every human death adds to their numbers, while every zombie death barely dents the horde. Military response fails for the same reason all organized resistance fails. It requires sustained resources and coordination against an enemy that requires neither. You can win battles, but you lose the war of attrition. And when the military falls, civilian survival becomes even more hopeless, which loops back to the core thesis. You can't survive walkers because every survival strategy has a fatal flaw. Compounding failures. Fortification traps you. Mobility exposes you. Hiding delays, death. Fighting wastes resources. Cooperation leads to betrayal. Isolation leads to madness. Your every choice you make in a walker outbreak trades one danger for another without eliminating risk. Night of the Living Dead's survivors fortify and die when defenses fail. Dawn of the Dead's survivors hide and die when they can't escape. Day of the Dead's survivors study and die when they turn on each other. The pattern repeats across every scenario because there's no right answer. The infection guarantees you can't rebuild population. Every death creates an enemy. You can't have children safely because pregnant women and infants are completely vulnerable. You can't treat the elderly or sick because they'll turn when they die naturally. Communities can't grow, they only shrink. Each loss is permanent, while walker numbers constantly increase. The math doesn't work. Even if you kill 1,000 zombies, more are being created from natural deaths everywhere. You're bailing water from a sinking ship with a teaspoon. Resource depletion ensures long-term survival is impossible. Canned food expires. Medicine degrades. Ammunition runs out. Crops need protection from walkers. Clean water requires infrastructure that breaks down. Gasoline goes bad after a year. Solar panels fail without maintenance. Everything you need to survive has a shelf life, or requires systems you can't maintain alone. Dawn of the Dead shows this through the mall. All those supplies seem infinite until you realize they're finite and irreplaceable. Once you eat all the canned food, there's no more. Once you fire all the bullets, there's no factory making more. Human nature prevents cooperation at scale. Small groups might work temporarily, but larger organizations always fracture. Resources create conflicts over distribution. Different survival philosophies clash. Some people want to hide, others want to fight, others want to find a cure. These disagreements turn violent under stress. Every zombie movie includes scenes of humans killing each other because that's what happens when you put desperate people in competition for scarce resources. The zombies don't have to defeat you. They just have to apply enough pressure that you defeat yourself. The psychological toll breaks everyone eventually. You can be strong, capable, and smart, but months or years of constant vigilance will erode your sanity. You'll start making mistakes. You'll develop PTSD from watching friends die. You'll lose hope and make decisions like Barbara's catatonia or Rhodes's paranoia. The human mind isn't designed for endless apocalypse. We need safety and rest and normalcy. Walkers remove all three permanently. You exist in permanent crisis until crisis breaks you. Shaun of the Dead's epilogue shows the darkly realistic outcome. Society doesn't defeat zombies or get defeated by them. It adapts to coexist in a degraded state where the undead are just permanent hazards you navigate around. Zombies on game shows. Zombies doing menial labor. Zombies in your shed. It's survival, but not victory. It's humanity reduced to managing an infestation it can't eliminate, accepting a world that's permanently worse. That's probably the best-case scenario, and it's still a nightmare. The evidence across every Walker film points to the same conclusion. Whether it's radiation from space, mysterious plague, or environmental disaster causing the outbreak, whether it's rural farmhouses or urban malls or military bunkers, whether the survivors are civilians or soldiers or scientists, the result is always civilizational collapse and mass death. Slow zombies create unsolvable problems. Their persistence overwhelms defenses. Their infection spreads faster than it can be contained. Their numbers grow while human numbers shrink. The psychological pressure breaks group cohesion. Resource scarcity makes long-term survival impossible. You can't win through violence because there are too many to kill. You can't win through hiding because you run out of supplies. You can't win through cooperation because humans turn on each other under pressure. You can't cure the infection because the infrastructure needed for medical research collapses. You can't escape because the outbreak is global. Every path leads to the same destination. You become one of them, or you die trying not to. The walkers in these films represent something fundamental about mortality and entropy, their death-given form, shambling forward with absolute certainty. You can delay them, evade them temporarily, but they never stop coming. They're the universe's heat death made visceral, slow, inevitable, unstoppable. Every moment you survive is just postponing the conclusion. The farmhouse falls, the mall falls, the bunker falls, the city falls. Everything falls because that's what walkers do. They don't conquer, they persist until everything else collapses from exhaustion. And that's why you can't survive them. Not because they're stronger or faster or smarter than you, because they don't need to be. They just need to keep existing while you slowly run out of ammunition, food, sanity, and allies. They embody the only certainty in life, that everything ends. Your fortifications will fail. Your supplies will deplete. Your mind will break. Your group will fracture. Your luck will run out. The walkers will still be there, shuffling forward, reaching out with decayed hands, waiting for the moment you make your final mistake. You've probably thought about surviving a zombie apocalypse because it is such an interesting topic to think and talk about. That's why today I'm breaking down why you would never be able to survive World War Z zombies. From 12-second infections to swarms that scale 100-foot walls, starting with the one thing that makes every other zombie look harmless: outbreak speed. The zombies in World War Z sprint at full speed the second they detect you, and they turn victims in 12 seconds flat. In the 2013 film, Jerry Lane times this transformation during the Philadelphia outbreak. A healthy person gets bitten, thrashes for a few seconds, dies, and snaps back up as a sprinting infected before you can process what happened. This is exponential spread happening faster than any response team can mobilize. One infected in a crowded street becomes 10 in 2 minutes, becomes 100 in 5, becomes an unstoppable wave before the military gets the call. Cities collapse in real time because the infection moves faster than information, faster than evacuation orders, faster than anything humanity has ever faced. Max Brooks' 2006 novel uses slow-moving zombies, but the movie threw that out. Director Mark Forster wanted visceral panic, making these things Olympic sprinters with zero fatigue. You can't outrun them, can't outlast them, barely have time to understand what's happening before your neighborhood is overrun. But speed is just the beginning. What comes next is where World War Z zombies break physics itself: the swarm. These zombies form massive, coordinated swarms that function like a single organism, piling their bodies into human pyramids to scale impossible walls. The Jerusalem sequence demonstrates this horrifyingly well. Israel has built massive concrete walls around the city. The refugees inside start celebrating, and the noise draws zombies from miles around. The infected don't claw uselessly at the wall base. They run full speed and leap onto each other, building a writhing pyramid of bodies that gains height with every zombie that joins. Within minutes, they've created a living ladder tall enough to pour over the top. The CGI team used over 5,000 individually animated zombies for this scene. The wall doesn't fall because of structural weakness, it falls because the zombies turn themselves into siege equipment. This behavior appears throughout the film. In South Korea, they pile up to reach second-story windows. On the airplane, they swarm through the cabin in a coordinated wave. The 2019 video game introduces special infected variants like bulls that charge through defenses and screamers that call in swarms. Even with automatic weapons and explosives, players get overrun without teamwork. Traditional zombie defense relies on choke points and barriers. World War Z zombies don't respect choke points. They flow over and around obstacles like water, using their bodies as disposable tools. The film never shows a successful static defense. Every fortification falls. Every barrier gets overrun. The only survivors kept moving or stayed completely silent. So walls don't work and barriers fail. Here's the next problem. These zombies have hearing that shouldn't be possible. Sound sensitivity. Every noise you make is a dinner bell, and these zombies hear from distances that shouldn't be possible. The film establishes this early in Philadelphia. Jerry's family is hiding when a neighbor's phone starts ringing. Within seconds, infected are throwing themselves against the door. In Jerusalem, it's not the walls that doom the city, it's the celebration. People singing creates a sound beacon that attracts every zombie within miles. The infected screech to alert others, creating a chain reaction that brings thousands converging on one location. The game takes this further with screamers that call reinforcements with ear-splitting shrieks. Kill them quietly or face an endless horde. This means you can't use guns except as a last resort. Every shot brings more infected than you killed. You can't drive vehicles because engines are too loud. You can't live in groups because people make noise just existing. Noise discipline in an apocalypse isn't just hard, it's essentially impossible for anyone who isn't trained special forces. Silence keeps you alive, but only until someone near you makes a mistake. And when they do, you've got 12 seconds before that mistake becomes your problem. Infection method. Getting bitten is a death sentence that executes in 12 seconds. But it's not just bites. The virus spreads through any fluid contact. When someone gets bitten, dark veins spread from the wound almost instantly. Their eyes cloud over, skin goes pale, and they convulse as the virus kills them and takes over. Jerry times it at 12 seconds from bite to reanimation. The game extends this to up to a minute, but the principle remains. Fast infection means exponential growth that outpaces containment. The real nightmare is secondary transmission. Zombies secrete a black tar-like substance loaded with virus. Get it in your eyes, mouth, or an open wound, and you're infected just as surely as a bite. The game's Infector variant weaponizes this by spitting infected bile at range. This makes melee combat suicidal. You can't wrestle a zombie without getting covered in fluids. The only safe way to kill them is headshots from distance, but that brings back the noise problem. Every safe method creates more danger through sound. The film shows characters amputating bitten limbs to stop spread, and even that only works if you beat the 12-second clock. 12 seconds from bite to zombie, fluids everywhere, and one scratch ends you. But the movie shows people walking right past zombies untouched. How? Selective targeting. These zombies ignore the sick, dying, and terminally ill. They're not stupid, they're efficient. Jerry discovers this through observation during his investigation. An old man and malnourished boy walk right past zombies without being attacked. The infected sniff them, screech, and move on, looking for healthier targets. Later, at the WHO facility in Wales, Jerry tests this by injecting himself with a pathogen that mimics terminal illness. He walks through a room full of zombies completely undetected. The virus has evolved to avoid hosts that won't make good spreaders. This leads to a camouflage vaccine that makes people invisible to infected by mimicking disease markers. The WHO starts mass-producing it, giving survivors a way to move through zombie territory. But here's why this doesn't save you. First, you need access to deadly pathogens and a functioning medical research facility with high-level containment. Second, you're deliberately making yourself sick. Gambling, you got the dosage right. Too little and zombies still attack. Too much, and you've given yourself a fatal disease. Third, this only works if you know about it, and Jerry only figured it out after visiting multiple continents and observing thousands of infected. The novel's zombies don't show this selective behavior at all. The film added this to give humanity a fighting chance, but it's a solution that requires global infrastructure that's already collapsed. So there's a camouflage trick that works if you can inject yourself with terminal illnesses in a collapsing world. Totally practical. But even if you pulled that off, there's one biological advantage zombies have that makes outrunning them a fantasy: no fatigue. These things run at sprint speed indefinitely. They don't get tired, don't slow down, don't need rest, food, or breaks. They just keep coming until destroyed. The film never shows an infected running out of energy. During the plane sequence, infected chase survivors for minutes without any decrease in speed or aggression. In Jerusalem, the zombies piling up the wall have been running and climbing for who knows how long, still moving at full capacity when they breach the top. The game reflects this by making zombie spawns essentially infinite. Humans do get tired. You can sprint for maybe 30 seconds before gasping. Every survivor in the film gets winded. The zombies never do. This creates simple math. In any extended chase, the zombies win because they can maintain pursuit longer than you can maintain escape. The novel's zombies shamble slowly but never stop, creating situations where humans hold them off for hours or days until ammunition runs out or exhaustion causes mistakes. The film's zombies collapse that timeline from days to minutes. You don't get to rest between waves because there are no waves. It's one continuous assault. This is why every successful survival moment involves either complete concealment or vehicles. Jerry's family survives by getting to a ship offshore. Jerusalem survives while the walls keep infected out. The WHO facility stays secure because it's isolated with strict noise discipline. Nobody survives by outrunning zombies long term. You survive by not being chased in the first place. They never stop, they never tire, and you do. Fine, so you can't outrun them. Just shoot them, problem solved. Except there's only one way to put them down. Headshot only. Destroying the brain is the only way to stop them permanently. And in the chaos of a swarm, landing headshots is nearly impossible for anyone who isn't a trained marksman. The film demonstrates this repeatedly. Characters who shoot center mass might knock a zombie down temporarily, but it gets back up. Only head trauma stops them for good. The game makes this a core mechanic where headshots deal massive damage while body shots barely slow special infected variants. A bull can soak a dozen body shots and keep coming, but one well-placed headshot drops it instantly. The problem is hitting a moving head under pressure. Zombies sprint erratically, leap, climb, and pile on each other. You're not shooting at a stationary target. You're shooting at something moving faster than you while probably also moving yourself, possibly in the dark, definitely while panicking. Even trained soldiers struggle. The film shows military units getting overwhelmed despite superior firepower. This makes ammunition conservation impossible. In a traditional zombie scenario with slow targets, you might score headshots with reasonable reliability. Against World War Z zombies, you're lucky to hit the target at all. You burn through ammunition at an unsustainable rate. The game reflects this through ammo economy, where even with team coordination, players run dry and have to resort to melee weapons, which brings back all the infection risks. Headshots only, on sprinting targets. In a swarm, your odds are terrible, and that's just in your neighborhood. What happened next turned the entire planet into a graveyard in under a week. Global spread. The infection went worldwide in days because it spread faster than information, and modern air travel turned every international airport into a distribution hub for the apocalypse. Patient Zero likely originated in Asia, but by the time anyone identified it as a threat, infected people had already boarded international flights. A single infected passenger turning mid-flight creates chaos that crashes the plane or diverts it to an airport where everyone scatters into a new city. Each new city becomes a new outbreak point. Each outbreak reaches critical mass in hours. The 12-second incubation means someone can get infected, board a plane, and spread the virus to a new continent before showing symptoms. South Korea's Camp Humphreys illustrates this. The base physician returning from assignment brings the infection. Within hours, the entire military installation is overrun. This isn't a slow creep from one region. It's simultaneous global ignition. The game sets missions in multiple cities across continents. New York, Jerusalem, Moscow, Tokyo, each facing identical outbreaks. There are no safe continents. The novel handles this more gradually, with infections starting in China and spreading over months. allowing for information spread and containment efforts that slow but don't stop it. The film's version is insurmountable because it removes preparation time. By the time world leaders understand what they're facing, the virus has already seeded itself in every major population center. The few governments that respond quickly, like Israel, buy time with walls and quarantines, but even they fall eventually. You don't get to see what happened in other regions and prepare. You get attacked out of nowhere by a threat you don't understand. Every continent, every major city, all simultaneously overrun before governments understood the threat. You'd think something spreading that fast would be mindless. That's what makes the next part so terrifying. Virus intelligence. The infection doesn't just reanimate corpses randomly. It drives infected towards specific behaviors that maximize spread, almost like the virus has strategic objectives. Selective targeting of healthy hosts proves this. A mindless reanimation shouldn't distinguish between terminal illness and health. That requires the virus to somehow assess host viability and make targeting decisions. Zombies bypass the sick and swarm the healthy with frightening consistency. This suggests the virus has evolved or been engineered with propagation as the primary directive. The swarming behavior supports this. Individual infected coordinate without communication to build human pyramids. They don't fight each other for victims or waste energy on non-viable targets. Everything serves transmission efficiency. During the plane sequence, infected move methodically towards survivors, using numbers and speed to corner targets. The game's special variants serve specific tactical purposes in overwhelming defenses. Some fan theories suggest bioweapon origins, which would explain strategic behaviors. The novel's Solanum virus has mysterious origins linked to Chinese cover-ups. The film keeps the source ambiguous. Practically, you're not fighting mindless zombies. You're fighting a distributed intelligence that uses human bodies as drones. It adapts to defenses by overwhelming them with numbers. It avoids wasting resources on poor hosts. Every traditional strategy assumes you're fighting stupid enemies. These enemies might not be conscious, but the virus driving them is ruthlessly efficient. The virus is optimizing, coordinating thousands of bodies like a distributed computer network. Sounds unbeatable, and it is, almost everywhere. But there's one environment where they slow down: cold weakness. Extreme cold slows them significantly, which sounds like a major advantage until you realize how few people live in regions cold enough to matter, and how hard surviving there becomes even without zombies. The film reveals this when Jerry observes zombies in cold climates moving sluggishly, almost frozen in winter conditions. The virus can't maintain full motor function at low temperatures. The novel explores this with survivors in northern Canada using winter as a defensive advantage. Frozen zombies become stationary obstacles, but translating this to survival strategy runs into hard reality. First, most of humanity doesn't live in Arctic conditions. The initial outbreak happens in temperate and tropical zones where billions are concentrated. By the time you could flee north, infection has achieved critical mass globally. Second, surviving in extreme cold requires gear, shelter, and food supplies that are hard to maintain without industrial support. You're trading fast zombies for hypothermia, frostbite, and starvation. Third, cold is seasonal in most places. Even if you survive one winter using frozen zombies as an advantage, what happens when temperatures rise and they all thaw simultaneously? The film suggests this creates a secondary spring crisis. And finally, cold only slows them, doesn't kill them. A frozen zombie is easier to approach and finish, but you're still doing manual labor in sub-zero temperatures against thousands of targets. The few regions where this works long-term, northern Greenland, Siberia, Antarctica, are so consistently cold that zombies can't function, and so isolated that initial infection barely reaches them. But those are also areas with minimal populations and no infrastructure to support refugees. Cold slows them but doesn't stop them, and most of humanity doesn't live in the Arctic. So, what if you get bitten? The movie shows someone surviving. There's a trick, but the timing is insane. Bite amputation. Cutting off a bitten limb before infection spreads is theoretically possible given the 12-second window, but practically requires tools, skill, pain tolerance, and luck most people don't have. The film shows this once. A soldier gets bitten on the hand, and his teammate immediately hacks it off. The soldier survives without turning because they beat the clock. The game allows players to heal infected teammates if treated fast enough, implying similar emergency amputation tactics. But think about what this requires. You need a sharp blade capable of severing bone in 1 or 2 strikes. You need someone willing to perform amputation immediately without hesitation. You need the victim to stay still despite incredible pain. You need something to stop the bleeding, or the person dies from blood loss. And you need all this within 12 seconds, which means noticing the bite instantly, deciding on amputation instantly, and executing perfectly under pressure. The odds are basically zero. Most people freeze when injured. Most don't carry amputation tools or know battlefield medicine. And most bites happen during chaotic swarm attacks where you're lucky to even realize you've been bitten before you've turned. The film only shows successful amputation once with a trained military unit. Every other bite victim turns. Cut off the limb in 12 seconds and you live. Miss that window by 2 seconds and you're dead. Sounds extreme, but at least the military has training and firepower. Surely they'd handle this better. Watch what actually happens. Military failure. Conventional armed forces with artillery, armor, and air support get overrun repeatedly, proving that firepower alone can't stop exponential spread backed by suicidal swarm tactics. The Philadelphia outbreak shows police and National Guard units deploying with standard riot control tactics. They set up barricades, try to maintain order, and get overwhelmed in minutes. Zombies don't respect police lines. They charge straight through, convert officers with a single bite, and the defensive line becomes part of the swarm. Later sequences show full military deployments with heavy weapons failing just as badly. The issue isn't firepower, it's the nature of the enemy. Military doctrine assumes enemies that take cover, value their lives, and can be suppressed. Zombies don't take cover or value anything. You can mow down 100 with machine gun fire and the next 100 climb over the bodies without slowing. Unless every single one is killed with a headshot, they keep coming. The novel details battles like Yonkers, where the US military uses combined arms tactics against slow zombies and still gets routed because they run out of ammunition before running out of targets. The film's fast zombies make this worse by closing the distance before heavy weapons can be deployed. What breaks the military isn't lack of courage or training, it's math. You can't shoot faster than the infection spreads. One infected soldier becomes 10, becomes 100, and each one is now armed with military weapons and knowledge of base layouts. The conversion speed turns your own forces against you faster than you can evacuate. Tanks, helicopters, trained soldiers with automatic weapons, all overrun. The military collapses faster than civilian populations because they fight back, and fighting makes noise. Speaking of noise, there's a feedback loop that turns one mistake into a citywide death sentence. Noise amplification. Zombies don't just hear noise. They screech to alert others when they detect something, creating a chain reaction that summons every infected within miles. One zombie spots a survivor, lets out that distinctive clicking screech, and suddenly, dozens more appear. The sound carries. Other zombies hear it and add their own shrieks, and the signal propagates like a biological alarm system. In Jerusalem, this creates a feedback loop where initial singing draws zombies. Their screeching draws more, and within minutes, the entire city is surrounded by thousands converging on the wall. The game makes this explicit through the Screamer variant. Kill it before it finishes its shriek or face massive reinforcements. The novel doesn't feature this specific mechanic, but describes zombies responding to each other's presence, creating similar concentration effects. This amplification destroys any hope of stealth recovery after a single mistake. Drop one item, make one sound, and you're not just dealing with zombies who heard it directly. You're dealing with every zombie in a radius that heard the alert screech. And because they're fast, that entire radius converges in seconds. You can't fight your way through because fighting makes more noise, which brings more zombies. An infinite loop until you're surrounded. The only counter is complete silence before the first zombie detects you. Once the alert goes out, your only option is to run and hope you can reach safety before the swarm catches you. One zombie hears you, screeches, and suddenly 500 more are sprinting toward you. But here's what's even worse. When they're not hunting, they do something that makes them almost invisible. Dormancy activation. When not actively hunting, infected enter a dormant state where they stand motionless or walk aimlessly, but snap to full aggression the instant they detect prey. The film shows this in South Korea when Jerry arrives at Camp Humphreys during rain. Zombies are standing in the rain doing nothing, just twitching. Survivors move through them quietly and carefully, and as long as they make no noise, zombies don't react. But the second someone makes a sound or one catches sight of movement, it's instant activation. 0 to sprint in less than a second. This dormancy makes infected far more dangerous than constantly active zombies. A zombie that's always hunting is predictable. You can track it, avoid it, plan around it. A dormant zombie can be standing 3 feet from you and you won't know until you make a mistake. The game uses this for ambush scenarios. What looks like a clear room suddenly fills with zombies when a player accidentally triggers activation. This is exhausting psychologically. Humans can't maintain constant vigilance indefinitely. You get tired, relax your guard, make a noise, and the dormant zombie you didn't see wakes up and screams to alert others. The few survivors who make it stay in completely isolated locations where zombies physically can't reach. They stand dormant in the dark until you make a sound, which means every shadow could be hiding one. Your best bet is a vehicle. Just drive away. Except vehicles have one fatal flaw. Vehicle limits. Cars and aircraft provide temporary escape but require fuel, maintenance, and roads that don't exist anymore after society collapses. And one breakdown in zombie territory means certain death. The film shows multiple vehicle sequences. Jerry's family escapes Philadelphia in an RV. Later, they use helicopters. Aircraft carrier ships serve as mobile safe zones. These vehicles work as long as they're moving or in areas zombies can't reach. But the RV needs fuel. The helicopters need fuel and maintenance. The ships need supplies. All these dependencies require infrastructure that's collapsing. The novel describes clogged highways, abandoned vehicles, and fuel shortages that strand survivors. Once you're in a vehicle and moving, you're relatively safe because zombies can't catch a car at speed. But you can't drive forever. You have to stop eventually. And stopping in an area with active infected is suicide. Aircraft have an even worse problem. The plane sequence shows what happens when infected get aboard. One passenger was bitten before boarding, turns mid-flight, and within minutes, the entire cabin is overrun. The zombie swarm damages the aircraft, causing depressurization. Jerry triggers it with a grenade to blow infected out, but this crashes the plane. You can't fight zombies on an aircraft without destroying it. Cars need fuel needs stations need electricity, and none of that exists anymore. So you're back on foot eventually, trying to outsmart things that shouldn't be able to learn. But they do. Pattern recognition. The infected learn through repetition and observation, adapting to defensive tactics like stacking higher to reach safe floors, or concentrating attacks on weakest entry points. This is subtle in the film, but visible if you watch closely. The Jerusalem wall breach happens because zombies pile specifically at points where the wall is shortest or most accessible. They're not spreading evenly. They're concentrating force where it's most effective. On the airplane, zombies swarm toward the cockpit and main cabin where survivors are concentrated. The game's AI demonstrates this through zombies prioritizing damaged barricades and flanking player positions. Whether this represents individual learning or virus-level optimization is unclear. The film never shows a single zombie displaying intelligence, but collective behavior suggests problem-solving. The novel's zombies don't show this at all. They're completely mindless except for basic stimulus response. If infected can recognize patterns, then any defensive strategy you use successfully once becomes less effective the second time. Set up a kill zone that works, and the next swarm concentrates somewhere else. The learning doesn't have to be fast to be lethal. It just has to exist. This destroys long-term survival planning. You can't establish a safe zone using consistent defenses because infected will eventually figure out how to breach it. The only reason some locations stay safe is because they're physically inaccessible like ships offshore, or they maintain perfect noise discipline so zombies never discover them. The infected adapt to your tactics, which means your safe zone gets less safe every day. And even if you somehow establish a temporary shelter, time is working against you. Resource depletion. Even if you survive the initial outbreak, total collapse of supply chains means you're eventually running out of food, water, medicine, ammunition, and fuel with no way to resupply. The film touches on this lightly. The Navy ship has limited supplies. Fuel for helicopters is presumably limited. The WHO facility is isolated and must have limited stockpiles. None of these locations are self-sufficient long-term. The novel deals with this through survivor communities struggling to feed themselves, manufacturing ammunition, and rebuilding agriculture under constant zombie threat. But that's with slow zombies that can be managed. Fast zombies make agriculture impossible. You can't tend crops when any noise brings a swarm. You can't fish when docks are overrun. You can't hunt when forests are filled with infected. The game shows players constantly searching for ammo and supplies between combat. There's never enough. You're always rationing, always one firefight from running dry. Real World doesn't spawn ammunition crates in convenient locations. Once you've scavenged what exists in your area, there's no more. Medical supplies pose an even bigger problem. The camouflage vaccine requires functional research facilities with specific pathogens. Those facilities are rare, and most are in overrun cities. Antibiotics expire. Insulin requires refrigeration. Chronic conditions manageable with modern medicine become fatal when supply chains collapse. Food runs out, medicine expires, ammunition gets used, and there's no resupply coming, ever. So you ration, you conserve, you survive on less until you're waiting to starve. But starvation isn't even the biggest psychological threat. Isolation psychology, maintaining perfect noise discipline and total isolation for months or years without human contact breaks most people psychologically long before zombies get them physically. The film shows survivors on the Navy ship dealing with close quarters and stress, but doesn't explore long-term isolation. The novel has multiple accounts of survivors cracking under pressure, making fatal mistakes, because loneliness drove them to seek contact, even knowing the risks. Living in complete silence for fear of attracting zombies means no music, no conversations above a whisper, no shouting when frustrated, no normal human expression. That's manageable for days maybe, but months or years? People start taking stupid risks to break the monotony. They convince themselves one little noise won't matter. They get sloppy because constant stress exhausts their self-control. The few successful survivors would be people who already live in extreme isolation. Remote homesteaders in Alaska, lighthouse keepers, Firewatch personnel. Everyone else lacks the psychological conditioning. You're not just fighting zombies. You're fighting your own mind's need for stimulation and connection. And your mind wins that fight eventually. Complete silence. Total isolation. No human contact for months or years. Most people break mentally before zombies ever reach them. And all of this, every impossible challenge, stems from one mathematical reality that dooms humanity from minute one: exponential math. One infected turning victims every 12 seconds creates mathematical growth that surpasses any response capability within hours, making containment impossible from the moment outbreak begins. Let's run the numbers. One zombie bites one person. 12 seconds later, there are 2 zombies. Each bites another person. 12 seconds after that, there are 4. After 1 minute, you have 32. After 2 minutes, you have over 1,000. After 5 minutes, the numbers become effectively infinite in any populated area. The film shows this with the Philadelphia outbreak. It starts with one person attacking on a street. Within minutes, the entire neighborhood is overrun. Within hours, the entire city is lost. No quarantine response can scale that fast. By the time you've identified the threat, called for backup, and mobilized containment teams, the infection has already grown beyond containment. The 12-second incubation removes the latency period that allows disease control to work. With most outbreaks, you have days or weeks between infection and symptoms where you can trace contacts and quarantine. With World War Z zombies, Patient Zero creates new infections faster than you can count them. This is why global collapse happens in days. Every major city has millions of people in close proximity. One infected person in a subway car during rush hour creates a cascade that spreads through the entire transit system before the train reaches the next station. Multiply that by every subway system, every airport, every shopping center, and you have simultaneous outbreaks in every population center on Earth. The novel's slower zombies allow for containment efforts that fail for other reasons, like political denial and inadequate military tactics. The film's fast zombies remove even the possibility of containment. The math simply doesn't work. You cannot respond faster than exponential growth with a 12-second doubling time. The outbreak is global and terminal from the moment it starts. Everyone has it in their heads that surviving a zombie apocalypse would be easy. Well, not everyone. Some people come to terms with the fact they would become a zombie on the first day of the apocalypse. Others would say that they are too out of shape to keep running, and others would probably have a complete change of personality when anarchy takes over. But for those that don't fall in those groups, they tend to think they could survive an actual zombie apocalypse. But what if the world isn't ravaged by slow-moving, stupid, corroding, alive again dead boys and girls like what we normally see? If you think you could take the same skill sets into a universe where a single drop of infected blood turns you into a rage-fueled maniac in under 30 seconds, well, you've got another thing coming. Today, a zombie apocalypse just hit your city. You've got 60 seconds before your neighborhood becomes a flesh-eating free-for-all. But you're going to make every single wrong decision. So today, I'm breaking down the brutal reality of why you wouldn't last a weekend in a zombie-infested city. And trust me, it's not for the reasons you think. Dopamine addict. Let's start with something nobody talks about in zombie movies. Your smartphone addiction is going to get you killed. On average, people check their phones 96 times a day. That's once every 10 minutes during waking hours. Your brain has been rewired to crave those little dopamine hits from notifications, likes, and messages from the buzz. When the apocalypse hits and the cell towers go down, you're not just losing communication. You're going cold turkey from a legitimate chemical addiction. While zombies are freaking out outside, you'll be experiencing withdrawal symptoms that include anxiety, depression, irritability, and most importantly, severely impaired decision-making abilities. Not to mention, you would have these symptoms amplified with an apocalypse anyway, unless you're just that guy. You'll find yourself unconsciously reaching for your dead phone during crucial moments, distracted and unfocused when you need to be most alert. That split second of reaching for your pocket instead of your weapon, that's when the zombie's gonna get you. But this is just one of many reasons, and coming up, we'll see why some of you would die for even dumber reasons, if that's even possible. Unlike starving, which is a surprisingly real danger. Not a farmer. 98% of people couldn't grow enough food to survive even if they had perfect conditions, unlimited time, and a library of farming books. You think you know about farming because you've seen some YouTube videos and maybe kept a houseplant alive for 3 months, but agriculture is insanely complex. Do you know what companion planting is? How to deal with soil pH? When to plant what crops based on your specific climate zone? How to preserve food without refrigeration? The signs of nitrogen deficiency in tomato plants. Even if you somehow get your hands on seeds, you're looking at months before any substantial harvest. And that's assuming you can keep zombies, other humans, and natural disasters away from your crops for an entire growing season. Most crops fail even under ideal conditions when grown by beginners. Let's say you're growing potatoes. Seems simple, right? Wrong. Plant them too early and they'll freeze. Too late and they won't mature before winter. The list goes on. It's pretty much over for your long-term food source. Meanwhile, you're burning 2,000, 3,000 calories a day just trying to survive, and that potato plant might give you 200 calories in 4 months if everything goes perfectly. Gangs, forget zombies for a minute, the real threat is other people, and you're absolutely not prepared for the level of violence that desperate humans are capable of. Within weeks of societal collapse, organized groups will form, and they won't be the friendly community groups you see in movies. These won't be people sitting around campfires making democratic decisions. These will be ruthless organizations led by the most violent and manipulative individuals who rise to power in lawless situations. Think prison hierarchies, not town councils. You know what makes a good gang leader in an apocalypse? Experience with violence, sociopathic tendencies, and the ability to inspire fear. You know what makes a good gang member? Unquestioning loyalty and willingness to do terrible things to survive. Are you prepared to torture someone for information about food caches? Execute other survivors who pose a threat to your group? These groups will have strategies you haven't even considered. They'll use human bait to lure zombies into enemy camps. They'll contaminate water supplies. They'll take hostages from other groups to ensure compliance. They'll use psychological warfare that would make military interrogators uncomfortable. And here's the kicker. Even if you somehow join one of these gangs, your suburban background makes you a liability. Gang leaders eliminate liabilities quickly and efficiently. You're not valuable enough to keep around when resources get scarce, and you're too moral to be trusted with the dirty work that keeps these groups in power. So far, all of this has been manageable if you play it smart and get lucky, but the next one could easily be one of the craziest threats on the list. Need medicine, something that affects way more people than they realize. Medical dependency. Are you wearing glasses or contacts right now? Congratulations. You're operating with a massive survival disadvantage the moment your prescription eyewear breaks or gets lost. Sorry, 4 eyes. But it goes way deeper than vision problems. About 50% of adults take prescription medications regularly. Blood pressure medication, insulin for diabetes, antidepressants, heart medication, thyroid medication, the list goes on. When pharmacies close and supply chains collapse, you've got maybe at most 3 months supply before you run out and your body starts giving up. Take diabetes as an example. There are about 37 million diabetics in the US. Without insulin, type 1 diabetics will die within days to weeks. Type 2 diabetics might last longer, but the stress of survival situations will spike blood sugar levels to dangerous heights. You'll be trying to outrun zombies while your body is essentially poisoning itself. Even seemingly minor medical needs become major problems. Need a CPAP machine for sleep apnea? Good luck getting quality sleep while manually breathing through zombie-filled nights. Have seasonal allergies? That constant sneezing and nasal congestion will compromise your hearing and breathing when stealth is essential for survival. Dental problems will become excruciating without modern dentistry. A simple cavity becomes an abscessed tooth, which becomes becomes a life-threatening infection. Meanwhile, you're trying to fight zombies with half your face swollen and pain that makes it impossible to concentrate. And don't even get me started on mental health medications. Suddenly, stopping antidepressants or anxiety medications doesn't just make you sad. It can cause seizures, suicidal thoughts, and complete psychological breaks that make rational survival decisions impossible. Infrastructure knowledge. You flip a switch, and lights turn on. You turn a handle and clean water flows out. You press a button and your house gets warmer. You have absolutely no idea how any of this actually works. And when it all breaks down simultaneously, you'll be completely helpless. The electrical grid isn't just power plants and wires. It's an incredibly complex system that requires constant human intervention to keep running. Power plants need fuel deliveries, maintenance crews, and computerized monitoring systems. When workers stop showing up and supply chains break down, you've got maybe 48, 72 hours before widespread power failure. But losing electricity doesn't just mean no lights. It means no water pumps. So no running water. No fuel pumps, so no gasoline. No refrigeration, so all food spoils within days. No communication systems, so no coordination with other survivors. No medical equipment, so hospitals become death traps instead of healing centers. Water systems are even more complex. That water coming out of your tap has been through multiple treatment facilities, pumping stations, and testing checkpoints. When these systems fail, you're not just without running water. You're surrounded by contaminated water sources that will kill you faster than zombies. You probably think you can just boil water to make it safe, but do you know how long to boil it? What temperature kills different pathogens? How to identify water contaminated with chemicals versus biological threats? How to build a proper filtration system from scavenged materials. Most people can't even change their car's oil, but they think they'll be able to maintain complex survival systems when professional engineers and technicians are all dead or hiding. But we're only at NUV5. Wait until you see what's coming. You're weak. Can you run a mile without stopping? Carry 50 pounds for more than a few minutes? Go without food for 24 hours and still be able to fight for your life? Survival isn't just about being in decent shape. It's about extreme physical demands that would challenge professional athletes. You'll be carrying heavy packs for miles every day, climbing over obstacles, digging fortifications, moving heavy debris, and doing all of this on minimal food and sleep. Your soft, climate-controlled lifestyle has left you completely unprepared for physical hardship. You get winded walking up 2 flights of stairs, but you think you'll be able to outrun zombies while carrying survival gear? You complain about walking through a parking lot in the rain, but you think you'll handle sleeping outside in winter weather? Even if you're in decent shape now, the physical demands will break you down quickly. Professional soldiers in peak condition struggle with extended survival situations. Your weekend hiking experience doesn't compare to the non-stop physical stress of apocalypse survival. Joint problems will develop from carrying heavy loads, muscle injuries from unfamiliar physical demands, foot problems from walking long distances in improper footwear, back problems from sleeping on hard surfaces. All of these issues compound until you're essentially disabled, making you easy prey for both zombies and hostile humans. And here's the thing about adrenaline. It makes you feel temporarily superhuman, but when it wears off, you crash hard. After your first zombie encounter, you'll experience an adrenaline crash that leaves you shaky, exhausted, and unable to function properly for hours. Perfect timing for the next wave of threats. Smart zombies. Every zombie movie treats zombies like mindless, shambling idiots who can barely walk in straight lines. But what if that's wrong? What if the virus or whatever causes zombification doesn't destroy intelligence? It just redirects it? Think about it from an evolutionary perspective. A virus or parasite that keeps its host functioning at higher levels would be more successful at spreading. Dumb zombies stumble into traps and get destroyed easily. Smart zombies learn from mistakes, set traps of their own, and adapt their hunting strategies. Imagine zombies that can remember layouts of buildings they've been through before. Zombies that learn to recognize the sound of specific weapons and take cover. Zombies that can coordinate attacks, using some to distract while others flank their prey. Zombies that figure out how to operate simple tools or even vehicles. What if zombies retain muscle memory from their previous lives? A zombie who used to be a mechanic might still know how to hotwire cars. A zombie who was a hunter might still know how to track prey silently. A zombie who was a soldier might retain tactical knowledge about combat and strategy. There's evidence that parasites can modify behavior in incredibly sophisticated ways. The Toxoplasma parasite makes mice attracted to cat urine, essentially making them seek out their predators. The Cordyceps fungus controls ant behavior with precision, making them climb to optimal locations for spore dispersal. A zombie plague caused by an intelligent parasite might create zombies that can plan, problem solve, and learn. They might use human bait to lure survivors into traps. They might learn to mimic human voices to trick people into opening doors. They might even retain enough human knowledge to predict where survivors are likely to hide. All your zombie survival plans assume you're dealing with stupid enemies. If zombies can think and adapt, every strategy you've ever considered becomes obsolete overnight, going insane. Humans are social creatures who need regular interaction with others to maintain mental health. In survival situations, you'll either be completely alone or stuck with a small group under extreme stress. Either scenario is a recipe for severe psychological breakdown. Isolation doesn't just make you sad, it causes actual cognitive decline. Your brain literally shrinks from lack of social stimulation. You'll start having conversations with inanimate objects, making increasingly irrational decisions, and potentially developing full psychotic episodes complete with hallucinations. But being with other people isn't much better when everyone is traumatized and desperate. You'll witness horrible things that your brain isn't equipped to process. Watching friends get torn apart by zombies, having to kill infected loved ones, making life or death decisions about who gets limited resources, these experiences will fundamentally break your mental processes. Post-traumatic stress disorder will hit everyone within weeks. You'll have flashbacks at the worst possible moments, panic attacks when you need to stay calm, and hypervigilance that prevents you from ever getting adequate sleep. Your judgment will become increasingly impaired as your mental state deteriorates. Sleep deprivation will make everything worse. Quality sleep becomes impossible when you're constantly listening for threats. You'll be operating on 2 to 3 hours of interrupted sleep per night, which causes hallucinations, paranoia, and severely impaired decision-making within days. Depression will set in as the reality of your situation becomes clear. Everyone you cared about is probably dead. Everything you worked for is gone. There's no hope of returning to normal life, and each day is just about surviving until the next day. This isn't temporary sadness. This is soul-crushing despair that makes it difficult to summon the will to keep fighting. You'll develop trust issues that make cooperation with other survivors nearly impossible, but you can't survive alone. It's a psychological catch-22 that most people can't navigate successfully. Resource management. You've seen movies where people find a well-stocked bunker or abandoned store and think they're set for months. In reality, resource management in survival situations is incredibly complex, and most people will make fatal miscalculations within days. First, you have no idea how many calories you actually need. Survival situations require significantly more energy than normal life. Cold weather, physical exertion, stress, and healing from injuries all increase caloric requirements dramatically. That can of beans you think will last 2 meals? It might not even meet your needs for one day. Water consumption becomes critical in ways you've never considered. You need water for drinking, cooking, cleaning wounds, and hygiene. In hot weather or when doing physical work, you can need a gallon per day just for drinking. Finding water is one challenge, but storing and transporting enough water for a group is logistically nightmarish. Ammunition management will get you killed. Movies make it seem like guns solve everything, but every shot you fire announces your location to every zombie and hostile human in the area. You'll burn through ammunition incredibly quickly in actual survival situations, and finding compatible ammo becomes nearly impossible once stores are looted. Fuel for vehicles, generators, and heating becomes a complex puzzle. Gas stations run dry quickly, and gasoline starts degrading after a few months. Propane, diesel, and other fuels all have different storage requirements and degradation timelines that most people don't understand. Medical supplies get used up faster than you'd expect. A simple cut requires bandages, antiseptic, and ongoing care. Larger injuries consume huge amounts of medical resources. Pain medication becomes incredibly valuable, but runs out quickly. Most people will hoard resources inefficiently, carrying too much of some things and not enough of others. They'll prioritize items based on perceived value rather than actual utility. They'll exhaust themselves carrying unnecessary weight while lacking essential supplies. Navigation. Your smartphone has made you navigationally helpless. You probably can't find your way across your own city without GPS assistance, but you think you'll be able to navigate during an apocalypse when all satellite services are down? Most people can't read paper maps effectively. They don't understand topographical maps, scale, or how to use a compass properly. They've never had to navigate by natural landmarks or celestial navigation. When your GPS stops working, you'll be lost within miles of your own home. Navigation becomes crucial in survival situations because getting lost means death. Wrong turns lead you into zombie hordes, hostile territory, or areas without resources. Getting lost in winter weather can kill you in hours. Taking inefficient routes wastes precious fuel, and exposes you to unnecessary dangers, even if you have paper maps. Do you know how to determine your current location without GPS? Can you triangulate your position using landmarks? Do you understand how to account for magnetic declination when using a compass? Can you estimate distances traveled on foot across different terrain types? Natural navigation seems simple until you try it. Using the sun for direction requires understanding seasonal variations and time of day calculations. Star navigation requires clear skies and knowledge of specific constellations that change with seasons and geographic location. Both methods become useless in cloudy weather. Urban navigation during an apocalypse is completely different from normal times. Blocked roads, collapsed bridges, and dangerous areas change the entire layout of travel routes. The shortcuts you normally use might be death traps filled with zombies or controlled by hostile groups. You'll waste enormous amounts of time and resources being lost, and every hour spent going in circles is an hour closer to running out of food, water, or fuel. Navigation mistakes compound quickly and can turn manageable situations into fatal ones. Weapon maintenance. Everyone's apocalypse fantasy involves finding some awesome weapons and becoming a zombie-killing machine. Reality check. Weapons require constant maintenance, and you have no idea how to properly care for them. Firearms aren't toys that work forever without maintenance. They need regular cleaning, lubrication, and inspection to function reliably. Use a gun without proper maintenance and it will jam, misfire, or even explode in your hands when you need it most. Do you know how to field strip and clean different types of firearms? How often different weapons need maintenance based on usage and environmental conditions? Ammunition isn't just about having bullets. Different firearms require specific ammunition types, and using the wrong ammo can damage your weapon or cause dangerous misfires. Ammunition degrades over time, especially in poor storage conditions. Moisture, temperature fluctuations, and corrosion can make cartridges unreliable or completely useless. Bladed weapons need constant sharpening and maintenance. A dull knife or sword is not just less effective, it's dangerous to the user. Proper sharpening requires specific tools and techniques that most people have never learned. Edge geometry, sharpening angles, and steel hardness all affect how weapons should be maintained. Even simple weapons like baseball bats or crowbars can break or become damaged with heavy use. Wood splits, metal bends or cracks, and handles come loose. You'll need tools and materials to repair weapons, plus the knowledge of how to make those repairs properly. Environmental conditions will destroy weapons quickly. Rain causes rust, sand and dirt cause mechanical failures, and extreme temperatures affect metal properties. Storing weapons properly becomes crucial, but requires knowledge about moisture control, temperature stability, and proper positioning to prevent damage. You'll also need backup weapons because your primary weapons will inevitably break or get lost. But carrying multiple weapons means more weight, more maintenance requirements, and more complexity in an already difficult situation. Sleep deprivation. Sleep isn't optional. It's a biological necessity that becomes nearly impossible to fulfill during apocalypse survival. The combination of constant vigilance, uncomfortable conditions, and psychological stress will create a sleep deprivation cycle that severely impairs every aspect of survival. After just 24 hours without sleep, your reaction time slows significantly, your judgment becomes impaired, and your immune system starts weakening. After 48 hours, you'll start experiencing microsleeps, brief periods where your brain essentially shuts down for seconds at a time, even when you're trying to stay awake. In survival situations, you can't just find a comfortable bed and sleep for 8 hours. You need to maintain watch schedules, sleep in uncomfortable positions, and wake up frequently to check for threats. Light sleep means you're not getting the deep sleep phases necessary for physical and mental recovery. Temperature control affects sleep quality dramatically. Too hot and you can't fall asleep properly. Too cold and you'll wake up constantly. You'll rarely have ideal sleeping conditions, which means you'll never get truly restorative sleep even when you have the opportunity. Stress and anxiety make quality sleep nearly impossible. Your brain will be constantly processing threats and planning survival strategies. Adrenaline from daily survival challenges will keep your nervous system in a state of hyperarousal that prevents deep sleep. Sleep-deprived people make terrible decisions. You'll miscalculate risks, miss important details, and react inappropriately to threats. That split-second decision about whether to fight or flee from zombies, sleep deprivation makes you more likely to choose wrong and die because of it. Hallucinations from sleep deprivation can be deadly in survival situations. You might see threats that aren't there, wasting ammunition and revealing your position. Even worse, you might not see real threats because you're distracted by hallucinations. Group dynamics suffer when everyone is sleep-deprived and irritable. Arguments increase, cooperation decreases, and trust breaks down, all when teamwork is most essential for survival. If you thought all this was insane, the final 3 will make you question everything about your survival knowledge. Trust issues. Survival situations bring out both the best and worst in people, but mostly the worst. The people you'll encounter will be desperate, traumatized, and willing to do whatever it takes to survive. Learning who to trust becomes literally a matter of life and death, and most people are terrible at making these assessments under pressure. Other survivors will lie about their intentions, their resources, and their capabilities. They'll present themselves as friendly and helpful while planning to rob or abandon you when it becomes convenient. That family with children who seems trustworthy, they might be using the kids as bait to lower your guard before adult members of their group attack you. Groups will form alliances with you only as long as you're useful. The moment you become a liability, whether through injury, illness, or resource depletion, they'll cut you loose without hesitation. People who seem loyal and cooperative will turn on you immediately when survival requires it. But paranoia isn't the answer either, because complete isolation means certain death. You can't survive long-term without some form of cooperation with other people. You need others to maintain watch schedules, share resources, and provide backup during dangerous situations. The psychological challenge is determining which people pose genuine threats versus which ones are potential allies. Make the wrong choice, and you're dead. Trust too easily, and you'll be betrayed. Trust too little, and you'll miss opportunities for mutually beneficial cooperation. Information becomes a weapon in survival situations. Other survivors will lie about zombie movements, resource locations, and safe areas to gain advantages over you. They might send you into dangerous situations while avoiding those risks themselves. They might withhold critical information that could save your life because keeping you ignorant serves their interests. Even within established groups, internal conflicts will arise over resource allocation, decision-making authority, and risk assessment. These conflicts often escalate into violence that destroys groups from within, leaving everyone more vulnerable than they were alone. The stress of constant threat assessment will exhaust you mentally and emotionally. You'll become increasingly paranoid and hostile, which pushes away people who might actually help you. It's a psychological spiral that most people can't escape once it begins. Comfort zone. Your entire life has been spent in climate-controlled environments with comfortable furniture, predictable schedules, and immediate access to food, water, and entertainment. This comfortable lifestyle has made you psychologically and physically unprepared for the harsh realities of apocalypse survival. Extreme weather becomes a constant life-threatening challenge. You've probably never spent extended time outdoors in severe cold, heat, or storms. Your body isn't acclimated to temperature extremes, and you don't have the mental resilience to function effectively when physically uncomfortable. Sleeping on hard ground in cold weather will prevent you from getting rest, leading to the sleep deprivation cycle mentioned earlier. You'll spend enormous mental energy just dealing with discomfort, leaving less cognitive resources available for survival planning and threat assessment. Hunger affects your psychology in ways you've never experienced. Missing a meal makes you irritable and unfocused. Going days without adequate food makes you weak, confused, and desperate. True starvation creates a psychological state where rational decision-making becomes nearly impossible. You've never had to make life or death decisions under extreme physical and emotional stress. Your decision-making processes have been developed in low-stakes, comfortable environments. When survival depends on split-second choices while you're exhausted, hungry, and terrified, your comfortable life decision-making skills become useless. Personal hygiene becomes a complex survival challenge that affects both physical and mental health. You can't just take a hot shower whenever you want. Extended periods without proper cleaning lead to skin problems, dental issues, and psychological distress that compounds other survival challenges. Your entertainment and comfort needs will create dangerous cravings that compromise survival decisions. You'll take unnecessary risks to find books, games, alcohol, or other comfort items. You'll waste time and resources trying to recreate familiar comforts instead of focusing on essential survival tasks. The psychological adjustment to a harsh, uncomfortable reality will take weeks or months that you probably don't have. Most people will make fatal mistakes during this adjustment period because they can't adapt quickly enough to their new circumstances under pressure. All your zombie apocalypse planning has been done in comfortable, low-pressure environments with plenty plenty of time to think through scenarios. Real survival situations involve making critical decisions in seconds while exhausted, terrified, and operating with incomplete information. Panic responses will override rational thinking at the worst possible moments. When confronted with immediate threats, your body's fight-or-flight response will flood your system with stress hormones that impair fine motor skills and rational decision-making. You'll freeze when you should run when you should hide, and fight when stealth would save your life. Information overload will paralyze your decision-making processes. In crisis situations, you'll be bombarded with sensory input, competing priorities, and multiple threats simultaneously. Your brain, which is used to processing information slowly and methodically, will simply shut down when overwhelmed. Time pressure creates a psychological state where people consistently make poor choices. That careful zombie apocalypse plan you developed over months of thought? You'll have 30 seconds to execute it while zombies are breaking down your door, and you'll forget half the steps while botching the other half. Risk assessment becomes nearly impossible under stress. You'll either become overly cautious, missing opportunities for escape or resource gathering, or overly reckless, taking unnecessary chances that get you killed. Finding the right balance requires experience with high-stakes decision-making that most people completely lack. Cognitive biases will distort your perception of threats and opportunities. Confirmation bias will make you see what you expect to see rather than what's actually there. Optimism bias will make you underestimate dangers. Availability bias will make recent events seem more likely to repeat than they actually are. Murphy's Law applies especially in survival situations. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong at the worst possible moment. Your backup plans will fail, your equipment will break, and circumstances will change in ways you never anticipated. Operating effectively when everything goes wrong requires mental flexibility that comfortable modern life never develops. Group decision-making under pressure becomes chaotic and ineffective. Everyone will have different opinions about the best course of action. Debates will waste precious time, and competing personalities will create conflicts that compromise everyone's survival chances. If you enjoyed this video and want to see Can You Survive a Zombie Apocalypse in America? Click it now!